Good morning everyone, welcome to my video channel today. Today I'm working on the snippet flowers. I've put up a video already showing the little hearts that I use that take care of heaps of little snippets of leftover bits and pieces from my slow stitching. And my little bucket is still overflowing considering I think I made about 6 or 7 hearts in the last video. So I thought I'd show you this time my flower. Now once again I have also popped a pattern for the flower up in my Etsy store, so if you did decide to make some, you can use my pattern. It's a PDF file, so once you purchase it, it's yours and you can enlarge it, decrease it as needed depending on the project you're working on. The little one I'm using today is the smallest one, so I've traced it onto some felt. I use a good quality felt, nearly a felt that you would put within a quilt. I don't like that craft shop felt. It's just a little bit too hard to work with. There's a lot of glue in that product and the needle going through it is just quite uncomfortable. Nearly feels like metal. So I use one that I get from a fabric store. So once my little flower is traced, I use a pen that is suitable for fabric, and this comes out when I apply the iron to it. So if you did want to get rid of your lines, if they're visible, just the heat of the iron will remove the lines. Now with the flower, there's a little bit of a trick to it. I try and do the petals first, and using some calico, line up roughly the width of the petal, a little snip, and rip a piece off. Now that to me is probably a fraction too wide, so I'm going to just trim that down a little bit. And we do each petal in this manner, and that gives us a bit of a background using the calico to create each petal. Okay, so it takes shape. Just making sure that we do cover that felt. We don't want it peeking through. It doesn't really matter, I guess, because it's the same color as the calico. And once you embellish your flower, you tend not to see it anyway. So I'm just got a couple more petals to do. You can see that sort of making the flower itself very scrappy looking. You could cut a second flower out of calico in the shape that the template is if you wanted to keep a nice curve shape, but this one in particular I'm wanting quite a messy little flower. Okay, so that's my background down. Now while I can access that, I'm just going to pop a little bit of art glitter glue in there just to secure it down. I will be putting some embroidery stitches down as well, so it's not like it's going to go anywhere, but the glue sort of just gives you that little bit extra security. Don't use a lot too that it soaks through the fabric. There's nothing worse than seeing glue popping through fabric. Calico is not too bad because it is a heavier weave, but just be a little bit careful with your glue. Okay, now I'll just put the cap on that. Now I'm sort of looking for something to go in the center as a feature, being that it, it is a flower. So I'm just going to grab my scrap bucket, see what we've got. I've got some little centers of doilies here. I've even got that piece now. I'm still wanting to keep that for a later date. Let's have a look at these couple pieces. Yeah, sort of don't mind that one. Now I've got some flowers over here that might be of interest. What's that? That's like a pre-made rosette. That's got potential, but at the moment it's all very harsh. Everything's very lineal, so we sort of want to soften it, and that's where I do go for some eyelash yarn, because that gives you fibres. They use it to make scarves and things like that. It's if you're a knitter or a crocheter, it's actually a nightmare to work with because it's so fibrous-y, and it's not the best product to do work with. So I've just tucked that around under the flower. I don't mind that. I'm actually going to put everything a little bit off center. I'm not going to do it in the middle of our piece. I just sort of think it might create a little bit of interest if it's a little bit. This is a lace that's a little bit curved, so I'm just snipping a few little pieces off to tuck in around the place. Might do another couple. All helps with creating that floral feeling when you've got a lace that has a bit of a floral finish to it. Okay, still need something else. Things sort of, I wonder if we could maybe make a bow. I've got some seam binding here, so I've just tied a little bow. Do I like that? Let me have a little snip of that. It's a bit of a crinkled looking little bow that could be added. As well. Yeah, I don't mind that. What else have I got? Well, there's a pre-made bow. And, don't mind that either. It's just a case of fiddle around. Just going to get that eyelash yarn hidden a little bit more there. It's getting very fiddly because I've got so many little elements to my piece. No, I'm not a lover of that either. I'm going to pop it back in the center to see if that's the problem. Not that there's a problem, but you know, you fiddle. It's half the fun is fiddling. Pop that back in there. Maybe that sits a bit off center. Yeah, I'm liking that. So I've moved the main structure back to the center, and the bow that I just tied out of that seam binding is the side piece, and I hope that shows up real well there. I might just now secure it with a little bit of art glitter glue just in a few little spots. I will go through with my needle and thread and pop a few stitches here and there because the glue won't be enough to do the job. So I'm just using it really just to tack it down so that nothing moves. A little bit under the doily just to assist with this. Okay. All right. So you can really use any shape of flower. This is just one that I sketched some time ago, and I've enlarged it into 3 sizes. I use it all the time. It's sort of a nice little shape that allows you to get quite chunky with the fabrics that you use. I'm just going to snip those little, put a little dovetail, fold it over, little snip, just a little detail at the end of the ribbon. Okay, just letting that sit for a moment. I'm going to now thread up my needle with just some normal cotton and just pop a few stitches now in a few random spots just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. Now, if you are using a bow in a flower in a journal, you might want the whole piece to be a little flatter. So a rosette like that might just be a little bit too chunky for a journal. But if it's on a cover, maybe it would be okay. So first of all, I'm going to just put a few little stitches within the folds of the flower so that you won't notice they're there, but it's right in the middle, so it may potentially catch. I'll just pull that petal back. It may catch many of the pieces underneath without having to do a lot more, but we will double check that everything is secure before we finish. You don't want your flower to turn into scraps as soon as you go and use it on something. Okay, I actually saw someone that had made a flower using scraps some time ago, and they'd actually stitched it then onto the pocket of some jeans. I thought, what a great idea. I use them everywhere anyway, but I had never thought of popping them on a pocket. It could even be on a pocket of a shirt, or in this case I saw them on some jeans. So I thought, what a great way to use up some of your favourite laces is to create a heart or a flower and attach it to some clothing that you wear. Is a lovely way to upcycle some of your scraps. And you know, we all have these scraps, so to have somewhere where we can use them is always a bonus. And as you can see from my little bits and pieces I use, there's very rarely I throw out little pieces, because they're often beautiful laces and often with memories attached to them, as you may have inherited them from a family member. So to be able to use them in some way in your craft, I think is just lovely. So, and even if I sell a journal or something in my little Etsy store and I'm packaging the journal up for the customer, I will use something in the way of a snippet I've created on the packaging. It's just a nice little thank you, and if it matches the colours of the journal, well then they can add it to their journal if they so choose. So I'm a bit of a fan of snippet hearts and flowers. I have a rabbit that I do as well, so I'm going to actually make you a little video with the rabbit, so you can see how I do him. He's a lot of fun, and with Easter coming up, he's got huge potential as little gifts. So I'm just finishing off that flower with the stitching. My needle comes undone because the eye is so big. It's technically not the right size, but it will do. Okay, that to me feels pretty secure. Now, just as a little extra detail, I'm going to thread up my crochet cotton now in that same needle, favorite color, 712. It's just a good cream, sort of matches most things. And just on some of these petals, as a little extra detail, I always like to add a little bit of embroidery, which also helps to secure down some of these snippets. I'm putting some little X's out on the actual petals. Okay, just a couple. You could go crazy and slow stitch so much more on these pieces, but I'm just going to put a couple little X's on that one petal there, and then I might put a couple more, that top petal there. Now I can see a little bit of the felt poking from behind this particular petal I'm stitching on. So I'm just going to, while I'm here with my scissors, just trim that back a little bit. It's not super obvious, but now that I've spotted it, it's all I'm going to see. So I'm going to just do a little snip just to make sure that it is completely hidden. Okay, just finish that off there. But embroidery is a beautiful way to sort of finish your piece. Sort of adds another layer of detail. So where was that edge? It's just in behind there, ever so small, but I'm happier now. I need more X's. I need to do more. When I did the video for the hearts, I couldn't believe I did one heart and it took 50 minutes. Couldn't believe it. So I do apologise for that extra long video. And then I sat for another couple hours and did more more hearts. I just couldn't walk away from it. So this time I traced 3 flowers onto some felt, and I've made 2 already, and this one with you. So I will finish this little guy off and then show you the other 2 that I made. Because if I do say so myself, I'm quite chuffed with them. Okay. All right, I'll just finish this off. Lovely. So a little seam binding bow at the bottom of the cluster of flowers. It looks like a little posy in itself. Little doily behind, some little lace popped in around the place, the rosette, and then just some random little X's on a few of the petals just as a little extra detail. So now I'm just going to double check that everything is reasonably secure with a little extra glue on those petals. They're not too bad. Now the back is showing all my little stitches. Now you can cover that with another piece of felt to tidy it up, and then you might want to put a clip on there for like a brooch, and that could be added to a fabric journal and it could be removed. You might want to just leave it as it is, because once you apply some glue and pop that into position, you'd never know your stitching's there. Okay, so that's that little one. Now I'll show you the 2 I did just before I turned on the camera. This little guy here, I had this little piece of cross stitch from a doily kicking around. So I've fussy cut it out a little bit, not getting too close to the stitching because I didn't want it to come undone. I didn't make it, it was just on a random doily. Then I had a tiny little bow with a rosette inside. And before I attached that down, I just poked in heaps of bits of lace and trim and netting and random things. I'm just reaching to my snippet, things like that. I cut that in half and just laid it on a petal, and then another bit and another bit. Just literally scraps, like things like that. Just cut some random pieces off. Even that could go in there. And I just layered the petals up with this trim, popped the cross stitch in the center as my feature with the little bow. The little bow just ties it all together with the colors that are in behind. So I was pretty pleased with the way that one comes, and I finally found a home for that little piece of embroidery. Now the other one I did is this one. I got a fairly large doily this time. It was part of a big tablecloth. I then added some of these little half pieces like I did just a minute ago, tucked them in behind that pink flower. And this here is a little piece of trim that's been kicking around in my snippet basket for some time. Now I have another piece of it. It was like 20 centimeters long, which I've used in a journal. And then I've got this piece left, and then I had this little piece. I thought, what am I ever going to use that for? Well, it's perfect there. It's just a little length, only so big. It has the pearls already on it. You can see there's a little metal stud popping through because the pearls are already in place from the manufacturer. So it's just a perfect little spot to pop a few little random things. You may not be able to see it, but see this loose little trim here? That's actually from a scarf, which I still have sitting on my table. I picked it up at an op shop. It's a random piece of clothing that had this gorgeous fibrous little edge. And as you can see, I've been nibbling away at it, like that side's completely missing all of its trim. but it's, you know, 1.5 meters long. So by 2 edges, that's a lot of trim, and I use it all the time. It's just a great little detail that just seems to pop up on journal pages all over the place. And even the fabric itself, I often cut things out of it. I may gather it together to make a flower. So yeah, if you're around an op shop, have a look through the scarf section, because you might find something quite lacy and pretty that can be added to your stash for embroidery and making flowers. The other thing I wanted to mention is this little flower is a pre-bought flower from a cheap shop. They come on a card, a little set of them. They had a sticky dot that the manufacturer had added to them. I've removed that from the flower because that's just extra bulk I didn't need. I was considering putting the white flower in that one, but it just didn't look right. So I ended up going and getting the pink one. So those types of things, you don't have to use them. These little sticky dots, it's just bulk that your embroidery doesn't need. Okay, I'll leave it at that. A little bit shorter video today using the template of flowers. And like I said, you're very welcome. If I can help at all with my little pattern, you know, pop over to my Etsy store and it will come to you as a PDF file. Otherwise, just sketch yourself your own flower. They're pretty simple, but you're welcome to use mine if you would like to. Okay, everyone, I'll leave it at that, and I will see you soon. The next video I will do with snippet ideas is going to be a rabbit, and that file is also in the Etsy store. So I will turn the camera on again when I play once more with some snippets. Thanks, everyone. Bye.